This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and colder, it can really take a toll on how we feel. Maybe that means calling your grandma, writing a letter to your friend, finally grabbing lunch with someone you haven't seen in a while. And just like reaching out to a friend, starting therapy can take a bit of courage. BetterHelp makes it easy to start therapy. You'll be matched with a licensed therapist based on your needs and preferences so you can focus on your growth and goals. Not happy with your match? You can switch therapists anytime with no hassle. This month, don't wait to reach out, whether that's checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself. BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/PFF. That's betterhelp.com/PFF.
The Lions and Commanders.
44-22.
There it is.
Fourth game ever. I'll have you know. Third game in the last 4 weeks.
44-22, the Detroit Lions win this game. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Detroit Lions, and there's a lot of good ones. Running back Jahmyr Gibbs at the top of the list with a 93.7 overall grade. Offensive tackle Penei Sewell with an 83.3. Wide receiver Khalif Raymond, an 82.3. Wide receiver Jameson Williams, an 82.0. And then center Graham Glasgow with a 78.0. Jared Goff in this one, a 90.3. On Washington's side of things, offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil with an 83.6. Tight end Zach Ertz, 77.4. Edge rusher Jacob Martin, a 70.6. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel, a 70.4. Center Tyler Biotish, a 69.7. And then Marcus Mariota filling in for Jaden Daniels, a 79.6. Stat that told the story, Dalton.
Stat that told the story. Well, the big story was Dan Campbell apparently taking over the offensive play calling. And some of these numbers I'm going to throw out here, he's going to feel like he's got some bragging rights. This was, remember how I just said the last game the Rams had the highest graded offensive game in their history, in their PFF history? Well, that's the same case with the Lions here, a 92.7 offensive grade, the highest the Detroit Lions have ever put up, and the second highest EPA per play they have put up in the last 20 years. Just another case, just like the last one, where this Lions offense and this Commanders defense is just not a fair fight. Too much star power, too much explosiveness. And then you look at some of the adjustments that Dan Campbell made, just some tweaks to the offense. Season high for Jared Goff in play action dropbacks, and a season high 46 plays with some sort of motion involved. I think Dan Campbell took over the play calling, especially against this Commanders defense, and said, you know what? We're going to mess around a little bit. I'm going to get this offense looking the way that I want it to look schematically. And the good part about doing it in this game is when you're playing the Commanders, yes, you have to game plan every single week. But, Trev, sometimes offensive play callers look at a matchup and go into a certain game and go, listen, we just got to run our stuff. We just got to do what we do. And it felt like as I was watching this game in sequence that it was like the Lions' greatest hits. Right now everybody's talked about Ben Johnson the last few years and how much are they going to miss him. Dan Campbell, he went back to play action, in cuts. There was some quick game stuff on the outside working inside the numbers that was really good. You got those hard action under center with a tight end going shallow, working across, and all the misdirection for linebackers. You got the zone run game obviously going with Jahmyr Gibbs, and he just had an outstanding day. But that's what it felt like, is Dan Campbell just said, you know what, these are the things we do best, and we're going to keep pushing that button until somebody stops us. Now, this Washington team, they're not stopping anybody, so it was almost further offense to me. After a while, especially in the second half, felt like a glorified practice. We'll see if the foundational stuff keeps working, because they got a big game coming against Philly. Also, huge game, especially for NFC playoff seeding and all of that. But this was classic Lions football right here on the offensive side.
Yeah, I mean, they were back to the version of the Lions we feel like we're used to seeing every single week. And Jahmyr Gibbs was excellent in this game. But to be honest with you, I don't say this to take anything away from what the Detroit Lions did. The Commanders stink. I mean, they're one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and it's tough right now. They have the worst EPA per play allowed so far this season. Their 36.5 coverage grade as a team is the worst in the NFL through 10 weeks. They have a 47.2 overall defensive grade. The big issue with the Commanders is I just looked this up. Along their defensive line, just their defensive line, they're ranked 19th in pass rush win percentage. Sort of the same range when it comes to like total pressure. So they're bottom half of the NFL when it comes to pressures that are generated. They have the worst coverage grade in the league. And their linebackers, Bobby Wagner, where he's a high IQ run defender, he's not the coverage player that he used to be. and his running mate next to him, the other linebacker, is Frankie Louvu. Frankie Louvu is, he does a lot of off-ball linebacker things well, but like Frankie Louvu is best when he's downhill, when he's like coming downhill defending the run. So you have two linebackers that you're trying to play that aren't coverage linebackers. One of them is very long in the tooth and just not as athletic in coverage as he used to be. The other one, that's not really his forte and why you have him on the team. Mike Samerstill has struggled this year, whether it's been outside corner or inside. Marshawn Lattimore's hurt. Trey Amos, who is your best corner just in his splash plays, leaves this game with an injury, and you got two safeties who aren't playing well behind him. So now you have a defensive line that can't get penetration, a linebacker group that can't run the way that they need to in coverage athletically, and a secondary group that's really struggling, whether it's in the slot, on the outside, or in the secondary. The Lions are a great offense. They've got great playmakers, and I think Dan Quinn taking over play calling, I don't know if this is going to like be a bad like chemistry thing in the long run with him taking back play calling, but like it's cool that he kind of says like, yeah, I wanted to take it back. That's my identity. I want the team to be my identity kind of a thing, and I wanted to create a spark. So Dan Campbell taking back play calling and being able to see an offensive output like this is good if you're the Lions. The Lions did a lot of really good things in this game. Somebody in the chat was asking about Jared Goff and his really high passing grade. He didn't have any big-time throws or turnover-worthy plays in this game, but the reason why he was graded really highly as a passer overall is because he had 12 plays in which he had a positive grade. He only had one play all day where he had a negative grade at all, and I didn't even see what it was. It was probably given his grade like just a 0.5, maybe something where it was like, okay, maybe he shouldn't have done that, or he could have done that a little bit better, but he had 12 plays where he gained a positive play. So anytime you have that many positive plays versus that few negative plays, obviously your grade is going to be really good. So Lions, don't want to take anything away from them. The story here is the Commanders and how all of a sudden last year's magical year with Jaden Daniels looks like it was a long, long time ago. I mean, they need a star in the secondary. They need a difference maker at safety. They need a true coverage linebacker. They need multiple one-on-one winners in pass rush on the defensive line. And this is one of the oldest rosters in the NFL. I think it might be the oldest roster in the NFL.
I believe it is, yeah.
So it's just it's tough for Washington. I don't mean to be overly negative about it, but they have to make so many changes in the offseason, and this is one of those teams that really has to. And what are their draft picks? I can't remember what their draft picks are.
They don't have a ton, right? You
yeah.
went over that because the Tunsil. I think they still have their first round pick, but was it a 2 and a 4 they gave up for Tunsil? Was it somewhere in there? Jared Goff only one negative grade the whole day.
That's what I'm saying. Stuff, it's really impressive.
Just you know what, and he's one of those guys. You know what? Sometimes just have a great game playing clean football.
Washington has their first round pick. They have their third round pick. They have their fifth round pick, and then they might have 2 6th and a 7th.
I think there is absolutely, especially in this draft, depending on how high they're picking. I think we mentioned this last week. They're going to be a fascinating case of, man, should they just trade down?
Yeah, I think that you have to at this point.
Just get more.
They right now have the 8th overall pick. They're 3-7. They lose the strength of schedule battle to Miami, but even if they won the strength of schedule battle, they'd only be at 7. They're a team that I think that you could trade out of the top 10 and you can get into the teens and you could pick up something else on day 2.
Because it's a good defensive draft.
And they need defensive
players. It's going to lean heavier on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, okay. My side of the told the story is just how bad the Commanders are on defense. My most impressive was Brian Branch. I think he was awesome in this game. 77.2 run defense grade, 87.6 pass rushing grade. He had a sack and a half in this game. Played, I thought, really well at the linebacker level. They were using him as that true, just like amoeba defender, basically everywhere, all over the field. And honestly, he had a lower coverage grade because he gave up a deep pass. But if you watch that play, I can at least like give him some credit for it because they pre-snap motion a player and he moves as if like he's in man coverage on this player. And the second the ball is snapped, he fires back to be a too high safety. And Mariota ends up throwing the ball his way as he is dropping and then having to cover a guy who's sort of like rounding through the seam. and he ends up giving up the catch, but he gives up the catch and his arm is like right in there at the catch point. So it's like, okay, yeah, you gave up this catch and coverage, but I still think that you did a pretty good job given the expectation of what you were trying to do there. So he was my most impressive in this game.
Yeah,
what about you?
For me, I mean, you could pick almost anybody on the offensive side. I'll go with Jahmyr Gibbs, though. 172 total yards, forced 7 missed tackles on the ground, 3 touchdowns. It just feels like when he's going and just the type of two-way weapon that he is one of the best backs in football. And I think that's a big thing with the Lions is that it's not just one way that they beat you on offense either. They can beat you any which way they want, whether it's explosive running behind that offensive line, Penei Sewell and those guys, or through the air. Gibbs did it both in this game. The early touchdown, the Texas route there on Jordan McGee was just really not fair at all. I mean, that's just, yeah, that's the type of thing. Those are the type of things Jahmyr Gibbs can do to you, especially in the open field. So, no, I think just overall a game that was relatively unfair when you look at that side of the ball, especially the Lions offense and the Commanders defense.